Thank you, Mr. Speaker. And Mr. Speaker, I ask unanimous consent that all members have 5 legislative days in which to revise and extend their remarks and insert extraneous materials into the record of the bill.
Without objection.
Mr. Speaker, I will yield myself such time as I may consume.
The gentleman is recognized.
Mr. Speaker, I rise today in support of several bipartisan bills that have resulted from the focus of the industries creating the jobs of tomorrow within the Subcommittee on Commerce, Manufacturing and Trade. In particular, we examined the Federal Trade Commission's oversight of and impact on innovation. We considered several bills to streamline the Federal Trade Commission's authority in emerging areas. These bills build on the Federal Trade Commission's work in overseeing the most cutting-edge industries as well as threats to consumer protection presented in part by technological advances. Mr. Speaker, the Federal Trade Commission has a good model for policing unfair and deceptive practices in economic sectors driven by emerging technology. We highlighted this in our Disruptor series of hearings focusing on new and game-changing technologies. The Federal Trade Commission operates under a flexible framework, and this session we sought to make improvements. Before I get into the bills we consider today, I want to highlight H.R. 5510, the Federal Trade Commission Process and Transparency Reform Act, which would strengthen the Federal Trade Commission's model by ensuring it has the right tools, the right restraints, and of course transparency. This legislation is the sum of several measures from a number of the subcommittee who each contributed some targeted reforms to ensure that the Federal Trade Commission continues to strike the right balance between mitigating consumer harm and fostering innovative products and services. The Federal Trade Commission was last reauthorized in 1996, and the last time substantial changes were made to its broad authorities was 1994. A lot has changed in the tech-driven sectors under the Federal Trade Commission's purview since then, and H.R. 5510 would make small reforms to ensure that federal law keeps up with the rest of the world. 2 of the 4 bills on the subcommittee we'll consider today clarify the Federal Trade Commission's ability to stop certain practices that have taken advantage of consumers over the Internet. One of our bills, the BOTS Act, H.R. 5104, is a targeted measure to ensure that consumers have fair access to tickets at reasonable prices. The Internet has created great opportunities for fans to engage with their favorite teams, their favorite performers, and their favorite artists. But ticket bots have detracted from these relationships and, in fact, thwarted the efforts to obtain event tickets at their intended prices. The BOTS Act is necessary to ensure that consumers reap the full benefits of having online access to event tickets. I thank Congresswoman Blackburn for her leadership in authoring this bill and pushing it forward through our subcommittee. Another bill, H.R. 5111, would ensure that online consumer reviews are no longer subject to gag orders. Some bad actors have penalized consumers for giving their products or services a bad review. This is holding back progress and accountability, and the legislation, the Consumer Review Fairness Act, would help put a stop to it. Congressman Lance is the author of this legislation, and I thank him for his work in making it becomes law. We also have before us HRes 847, a measure that recognizes the potential Internet of Things. A national strategy is needed for the Internet of Things. In order to reap the potentially enormous benefits of connected devices, we must ensure that the bureaucracy stays out of the way of innovation, stays out of the way of progress in the marketplace, but that the government is also using the technology to reduce costs to taxpayers. Similarly, we are putting forward a resolution by Mr. Kinzinger and Mr. Cardenas, H. Resolution 835. This measure recognizes the growing importance of advanced financial technology, what they call fintech. Fintech has driven forward the development of blockchain technologies, which are poised to revolutionize several economic sectors. Blockchain technology may help solve problems related to transaction costs and is especially well suited to address security concerns in cyberspace. In addition to the 4 bills from this subcommittee, we will also be considering 3 bills from other subcommittees within Energy and Commerce. The Amateur Radio Parity Act would require the Federal Communications Commission to adopt rules that allow amateur radio operators to use their equipment in deed-restricted communities. The Advanced Nuclear Technology Development Act would provide certainty for scientists and industry that advanced nuclear technologies that can be reviewed, licensed, and commercially deployed, helping the United States remain the world leader in nuclear technology development. Finally, the Sports Medicine Licensure Clarity Act would ensure doctors traveling with athletic teams across state borders are properly covered by malpractice insurance. Again, I want to thank all members of the subcommittee and the full committee who sponsored these measures, the stakeholders who helped us perfect them, and Mr. Speaker, I will reserve the balance of my time.